How's it going, folks? Obviously this is not Thursday. So therefore we're not exactly 2 weeks off of the last time that I streamed. And the reason it's like that this time around is because actually I need to reassess my workload. It's been a little bit much for me lately to try and keep up with that once a week stream, and so I just kind of needed to just take you know take a step back from this whole live streaming thing and sort of ask myself if this is really the best way to do what I'm trying to do. So I think ultimately right now, in terms of getting the best possible product to folks, I'm going to focus on not doing more than just I'll keep the bi-weekly thing up, but I'm not going to be doing this as a live stream anymore, at least for the time being. The main logic is that it's just too stressful for me to try and coordinate times and stuff like that, and space is an issue. So it's just, without getting into too big of a detailed thing, because it's really not it's just not relevant. I'm going to be shaking this up a little bit. We'll have more sort of pre-recorded style segments on throughout, like every other week, every other Thursday, just as we had originally planned. But doing it live is just, it's becoming a little bit taxing. So this is sort of the last little hurrah, and I wanted to do one more little thing like this just to sort of get it out. So at any rate, I could sit here and I could spend the short amount of time that I'm going to be doing this evening talking about how, I could sit here and try and explain the Ukraine situation. Which is just, it's really convoluted. And frankly, I haven't had a chance to read all of the brand new transcripts that have just come out. So I'm not going to go over that. I'm not going to go over Nancy Pelosi's double speak on Medicare for All, because she's just, I'm personally just, I'm tired of having to have any conversation with anyone where I have to explain why Nancy Pelosi's whole agenda is just so backwards, and exactly why that, the way she presents her arguments are like, that's the problem that I and many people that I know have with Democrats and just sort of establishment politicians, people that have been in office for a really, really, really long time. It's unreasonable, the way that she'll just kind of do these loops right around Medicare for All, and it's like, she supported it. So I don't really have much patience for that. But again, I don't know, maybe I'll show clips. Like, it might be worth it, just because I don't know if, I honestly don't think that anybody aside from like the people that I've seen on Twitter would it's because it's just the outlets that will show you the comparison between the two clips. They're just not they're not widely known amongst small town New Hampshire. So I don't know. Yeah, maybe it is worth it to show that. But maybe I'll do it in a little bit. We'll see how it goes. Like I said, I don't want to do this for very long. But I do, I want to get really into doing some deep dive stuff on the housing situation. And I mean, because it's something that I'm talking about every stream with this. And at this point, I kind of think it's like it's starting to be one of like the linchpin issues of this channel in terms of what we talk about, which is honestly, maybe that's fine. Like, I don't know. I want to get off this town fighting stuff and just talk about something that we can all be happy about. And that's gonna come along with doing the show in the new way that I'd like to do it, where it's not when it's not live and I have a chance to actually sit down with folks. I do want to go, bring up issues like this and then go over it with people and see what their take is. I think that kind of thing will be really interesting if it's not just me sitting here talking into the internet, which it drives me nuts. So I can do it and it's fun, I suppose, but like I'm not a Twitch streamer, so I don't know. I don't want to sit here and like reflect on the PBS NewsHour, like just sit here and real time critique that stuff. Like whatever, it's not worth it. So anyways, but there's a lot of really detailed resources that I've been getting lately in terms of there's the plan that Snunu just released about what he wants to do at the state level on trying to resolve the affordable housing crisis. So he's coming at it from one side, and then you've got conversely, on a local level, at least here in Peterborough, we have the task force going on, and there's a bunch of resources buried up in that. One of the things that was sent along ahead of this next meeting that we're going to be having, which actually, let me check the date on that particular, because just if anybody is watching this that cares, it's worth it to know. Right. So, yeah, it's going to be on the next Housing Task Force meeting will be on November 21st, 5 p.m., Bass Hall. It's going to be a potluck, so if you can make food and bring it, please do. It's potlucks are the way to go. I need to check and see what day of the week is that. That is a Thursday. So, yeah. So, I mean, who knows? I'll probably try and throw something together for that if I can. Now that I know. But at any rate, there's copious amounts of resources that have sort of come through, around the task force, and there's a lot of there's data to look at. The governor's statement that has a bunch of data in it. I'd like to look at that stuff too, because it just I want to see everything for real and whatever form it's in, and then try and talk about it, because otherwise I'm just reading what other people like. I'm just reading off other people's work, and I don't care about doing that. I'd rather just have people on and talk about their own findings. So at any rate, yeah. So there's AARP information, which that'll be interesting for me to read, because that's like that is not my demographic right now. But it's certainly one that affects me because of the aging population in the state. So it's worth reading. But at any rate, I sort of ahead of the next show, this is stuff that I plan on like really digging through and trying to give moreover my take on it right off the bat. And that way I'll try and get that up ahead of this, like a full take on everything that we have so far. I'll try and get that up here. ahead of the next meeting. So if anybody wants to if they need to catch up on stuff, and they're not able to read all of that, which I can completely understand. I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to have time to do it. Because I certainly haven't had enough time yet. And this is what I do. Outside of just trying to keep my house clean and do my day job. At any rate, So, I will be doing a much deeper dive on that. For the time being, though, what I'm gonna be doing tonight, I don't want to. Again, I don't want to go too deep into stuff, but it's really important that I sort of like. I hope people realize that this is a resource for them. Actually, you know what? Hold that thought. I just want to check something really quick, so I'll just we'll be right back, folks. Okay, everybody, sorry about that. So yeah, what I want to do is I want to take a minute here to talk about just sort of where you can just find minutes, like the planning board minutes, so that it, and just minutes in general. I know I'm saying the planning board because that's probably one of the hottest topic in town right now, but it's important to know this in case you didn't, that the minutes get posted, which is more or less a transcription, although not like word for word. It's sort of like a ledger of meetings that happen in town. This is the official record. It gets posted online in PDF form, so we can. When someone refers to this stuff in the newspaper, like just so you know, you can go check this stuff out and see what happened and see if sort of see how, if you totally agree with the take that you're being given, which is sort of, this is I just want to sort of use this as an example, right? So just so everybody can sort of see this, here is this is the Peterborough Town website, townofpeterborough.com, or yeah, townofpeterborough.com. And right here, I've just, we're in the boards and committees. We went to the planning board. I'm looking at the 2019 minutes. So I've clicked this, brings me here. It gives me a list of these. These are, obviously the minutes for each date. So right here, we've got the most recent meeting. So this is the October 14th. It's right up here at the top. So and when I'll hop back over in a second, but the reason that I'm bringing this up is because there was a letter to the editor that was posted in the paper, that essentially was saying that the planning board didn't listen to the people, I guess. It said there were a bunch of people at the planning board meeting, and it based off of um the minutes, there certainly were a bunch of people there. Um and and people in the affecting area of surrounding this project, not just so anyone, if you don't know what the point of contention was, it's the new property that's going in where the old Woodman's Florist used to be on Concord Street. Um, and it's supposed to be multi-unit, it's like multi-family housing. Uh, Pretty much everybody knows that it's not going to be affordable. That's just because it's not, because you literally cannot build new affordable housing. Like that just, it's a that's nonsense. So don't let anyone tell you that you can do that, because it doesn't exist. So at any rate, obviously that's like something that comes up and is annoying for folks. But generally speaking, I mean, it's people that are worried mostly about, like, a lot of what comes up is like the traffic impacts of what's going to happen, and curb cutting and stuff like that. And I'm trying to this this particular letter. Let's see here. Sorry about this, folks. Also, please excuse the new arrangement. Had to switch up locations a little bit. That's why the background is different now. Just for anyone that wasn't sure why this looks the way it does right now. So at any rate, I'm just. Oh wow, there's a lot of letters that came in. um. Yeah. Here. Okay. So. Yeah. Planning board disregarded concerns. So okay. Here. I'll put it up on the screen here. So, alrighty. There we go. So, basically, this letter is, I'll read it straight up, okay? So, to the editor, I attended the October 14th, 2019 Peterborough Planning Board meeting, specifically the portion involving the development of the Woodman's Florist property on Route 202 Concord Street. During the public feedback section of the meeting, several residents, many of whom are abutters, raised serious concerns and objections about the project. With the exception of one motion raised by Judy Wilson Furstenberg, then downvoted, all concerns were disregarded by the planning board, as if they had not been made at all. Many objections involved quality of life issues, such as visitor parking, a place to deposit plowed snow, a play area for children, etc. The planning board seems to have no oversight of such issues. Instead, they support a developer who's proposing to build way too many houses for such a small space, hence no extra space for the above items. Not sure how this development improves the quality of life for Peterborough residents, especially the poor souls who end up buying these houses. I long for a day when our planning board prioritizes housing that's compatible with the neighborhood and considers the needs of abutters and the families who will live in these houses once built over the needs of those developers, or the developers. So look, I wanted to talk about this because this particular, like, there's the way this is written, right? There's some particular problems that I have with it. And I think it's worth kind of getting into it a little bit. Now, We have the minutes. Okay. We have them. They're readily available to us. So we can hop to that. Move over here. Okay. So now we're looking at it. Let's we'll I think we're in it here. Yeah, okay, so here's the beginning of it. Um Now the things that were brought up in the article, right? So I'm probably going to be doing a little bit of hopping back and forth between these two things. So these objections, right? Um there's sort of there are a lot of people trying to understand the specific logistics um of what this building will look like, right? They refer to as quality of life issues such as visitor parking, a place to deposit plowed snow, play area for children, etc. Yeah, and those are valid things. They come up. They're all issues that absolutely need to be dealt with. It's you know essentially what like everybody kind of brings up different points, and they're all reasonable points. It's certainly it's all certainly anecdotal though. Sorry, I just clicked to something else that we'll have to get back to. But it's all fairly anecdotal in its like individual observational qualities, which clearly that's how you deal with it, like writing laws and dealing with things in a town. Like obviously that makes sense. But it's important to understand that it's still like a relatively finite anecdotal position to be having. Um, so I don't want to focus too heavily on those specific concerns because I mean they come up. You've got right now what I'm mostly just sort of hopping over totally right here is just sort of the a lot of the backstory stuff, just explanations of the plot itself, things like that. Um, so and I want to be abundantly clear here that they're operating off a waiver request on TNOZ1. Okay. Um, and and you can go and watch, I think it's in the interview with Mark Fernald, where he talks about how this is just, it's still going to get made anyways, and there's nothing, like none of this debate it affects this at all. And but a point I'd like to make is that most of the people that are in this room and appear in these minutes right here are people that are on the if you've watched any of the previous videos, they're the folks that wanted to repeal zoning. They are many of the folks that are along the whole abolish the planning board type movement, that essentially, I guess I don't really understand why it's so angry. But at any rate, like I think, I look at this and I gotta wonder if this is where Mark Fernald got his whole 16 unit number right here when we were talking. Um, but again, that's not permitted in the zoning. So I like it's there's just and this is kind of why I'm not even doing a deep read on this. I did the other day, and I had skipped forward in this, so there's a lot of stuff that I didn't necessarily get a chance to go through. I'll readily admit that on this stream that I didn't get a chance to read through all this stuff, partly because I just wanted to get this out. But and also everybody can go read this themselves and see what I'm talking about. But we're talking, we've got that exact number that I heard in that interview showing up right here, and I got a part of me wonders if that's where he got the we can do 16 units on this, well, whatever. So, but I don't think that's true because yeah, I don't know. Perhaps I see what the lot size of this is. So I mean, without I'm not I don't want to scroll back on this too far, but this is something that they've been working out, and this right here is a really good example. This entire project is an awesome example of why the form-based code would have been really helpful in a situation like this, because there wouldn't have been so much like waiver requesting that would have needed to happen. It would have been a lot easier to just say, look at right at the code and say, okay, we know exactly what's going to happen. And that, obviously I'm going to have to do a totally different episode where I actually go back and I open up the original form-based code that had been proposed way back in 2018, and we should talk about that because chances are people will have a look at it and realize that it's not anywhere near as offensive as they had originally thought it was. It just depends on who's telling you about it. Much like this editorial piece, this letter to the editor here, talking about disregarding folks. So, and obviously the developer here is going to seek every single waiver that he can. He's going to because they have a pretty solid project that they want to work with right now in terms of they know exactly what they're going to do. They've gotten more or less the clearances that they need, so they just want to move forward and get it done. So, there's a lot of questions here about the stormwater, which makes sense. Again, these are valid concerns. A lot of this also has to do with the roadway, though, which is where things start to get a little sticky later on when it comes to who mandates certain work, right? And I guess this is sort of the problem that people have with bureaucracy, where it, you know, um, yeah, it is. This is so annoying, man. Just this is such a mess, and I'm like, I'll lose my place doing this because it's so convoluted. I was trying to explain this whole thing the other day, and as I was trying to just distill it in my head, I realized how absurdly complex and just over the top this is. And I have to wonder at some point if all these folks are just going to ask themselves, like, hey, when is enough enough? Um, and when can we just let this crap go and move on with our lives? And just do, I don't know, do the right thing. But I don't know how I could ask that and not continue to keep demanding that we just fight on this forever. So, okay. Um, Essentially, this is I've been going over just board discussion stuff. And So we're getting to the sort of the public comment section. Um, we definitely seem to have a number of people that are not necessarily affiliated with any movements. Particular, the first person comes out and says he's just representing his wife and himself. Um, we do have concerns about there being play areas. So here's that play area concern. So we have the guest parking thing come up right here. So this is where that's at. This is about restoring or preserving historic buildings. Uh, we're talking about this is sort of a moment where this idea of rehabilitating the building that's there comes back up again, or replacing it. Um, that we'll talk about that stuff at a different point. Um, so here's sort of where the like one of the biggest bones of contention that comes up in the whole thing is like, um, it says the police it's got concerns about the steep slope to the north. They want heavy vegetative buffer there. Um, says police chief, and he both think a traffic study is needed. Which okay, yeah, I can understand that. I can understand why people would want to see a traffic study on this, but the time is getting tight to do that traffic study. Time is getting very tight to do that traffic study, and I think also this is just not necessarily the right forum to do it. That's more like yeah. So at any rate, as we'll see further down, it comes up that's just more of a DOT issue. Um, so we've got somebody asking here about the curb cuts, and and that's obviously something that everybody gets stressed about. I personally don't understand why it's a huge worry. I think debating over like increased traffic frequency because of having more in or outs is and having more cuts, like I don't personally know if that really affects anything at all. Um, but it's again and I feel bad. I'm sitting here and I'm not really reading this out. I'm not really and maybe I'm not doing this whole thing justice. Um, maybe it's not. Maybe this isn't especially helpful, but um, you know, yeah, I guess I mean, yeah, maybe it's worth it to hop. I just like, again, it's really like this is way out in the weeds. So we've got people in here worried about like making quick changes to the plan that they had to help it get through. Um, hey, like, you're changing this, and why don't you have to reapply? And them saying, well, we don't necessarily, we on the planning board don't really think that the changes are significant enough. So it's like you're really talking about like one citizen disagreeing personally, like on like I just don't like it's you've got somebody saying I don't like the way you're doing this, and the other person saying, well, I mean, I think the way we're doing it is fine. And unfortunately, that's the crux of this entire thing. And as you keep going, that basically the takeaway I get from this in many ways, and I'll try and elaborate on it a little bit more here, but and actually, here we've got, this is again bringing back up the saving the old property. You've got somebody on the board saying he lives like literally lives in one of the apartments, and said, it's affordable, but it's also like, you know, um, but it's, he also points out that it's not worth it to fix it. Um, we've got and that's Chair Carrera, and you got um Ms. Furstenberg, Judy Furstenberg here saying, well, what about, you know, tearing it down and replicating it? Why don't we replicate the old building? Which they okay. Um, but I think, that's just it's just clearly not like um it's just not an option. Like you can't that's like that would be lumped in with rehabilitating, as it's said here. Um there people are having certain feelings about like what do, like whether or not you'd have a porch facing the road and whether or not people would actually use it. Again, we're getting into anecdotal stuff. Well, I lived on that street for a while. I never used the porch. Like, it's so then it becomes like, well, should we do this whether or not we think enough people will be willing to use this porch or not? That's why we should put these porches. So I think that's a little like, I don't know. To me, that's a bit much, but but again, that's just me. Like, look, if we really feel like we need to be that specific about things, but there's a certain point where I have to wonder, like, hey, help me understand how that's not like somebody trying to tell me what to do with my property. If that's if we're gonna use that, like, that logic, then I'm sorry, but um it's like it's a lot of people who are acting like a new development that's not property that they own is somehow like an affront on the way that they're living in their town is, because it will change it or make it more busy or more populous or whatever. Um, so they're worried about it, and so they come down and they exert exactly the same controls over hypothetical people that would be moving in, uh, who would become part of the town's identity in of itself. They are now forcing those people to have to do exactly the thing that they don't want to happen themselves. So, I mean, I don't know. I just like, I'm sorry. I personally see a hypocrisy there. Um, It's just not like, it's not. I don't know. It's just this stuff isn't helpful, man. Like, and I don't look. I don't know, man. Maybe I sit here and I try to think about whether or not what I'm doing is of any value every time dude, I'm even worried about whether or not this is worth my time. Every time I get worried about it because doing right by the community matters to me. This isn't like, I could sit here and just like crap on, Ben Shapiro or whatever all day long. It's that kind of thing doesn't take effort. That's not a challenge. That's not, and it's also not necessarily helping change anything. There's armies of people that can fight whatever battles they need to fight on the internet, and I don't care about that crap. Like, that's not what I'm in this for. I'm in it for trying to help the immediate community here in town, and in this area. At least when I'm talking about issues like this. Sometimes I talk about a state issue, I'm talking about the whole state, but oftentimes I'm talking about it from the perspective of right here, because this is where we live. This is our thing. And I it's oh, okay. Getting back to this, right? I'm gonna switch back over. I'm gonna like read some of this stuff because this is it. I feel like it's just I don't necessarily know what else to do. So you know, got we have a request here directly that says I would like to ask the planning board to take a vote tonight regarding the traffic study. Um, they say the clock's ticking. They've got 53 days left to vote on a consensus of whether or not like the request for a study is necessary, um, or whether or not to request a study was necessary. So it's like she's saying, I want the planning board to take a vote tonight regarding a traffic study. Okay. Well, regarding what about the traffic study? Because right here, these what's said right here and following in these minutes is that 53 days left to vote on the consensus on whether or not to request a study was necessary. So they're talking about like they're asking is it even necessary for us to ask? Right? Not is it necessary? Is it necessary to ask if it is necessary? Okay? So it's like it's this is the level of convolution that's happening in this situation. You know, and they do. They have a vote on it, right? Um you know, it's kind of like it's a lot of the same thing, and I think there's people tend to be asking questions like, well, why are we building so many little expensive houses? Like, why is this happening? It's like, well, because it goes back to basic things that are just basic mechanics here, folks. Um, it is not possible to build affordable housing from out of nothing. Like you just, that's not something that can economically be done today. So I personally don't understand why anybody is asking the question, why can't we build it? Because there's no money and we live in a capitalist society. That's why. Okay? If you want to solve that problem, we need people to straight give money or allocate tax dollars for it. Now, a solution to that would be to use a like TIF district funding, tax increment financing to create the necessary funds to build new properties essentially on taxpayer dollar, that would subsidize the creation of these buildings so that it's not like a sunk cost. You know what I mean? Like it's no, like, because when you're asking a private entity to do that, like for them, they don't see any value in doing that unless they can get a certain amount of money out of it. So basically you have to find a way to write off that cost of that building. Like we just have to be willing to basically give away housing. It's just, that's how that is. So the basically the question of like, well, why do we keep doing this thing that even though affordable housing, and I said, why do we keep doing that? Why do we keep making these expensive houses? And the answer is because there's no other choice. And the idea is that you either get, and this is tough to, on how do you solve this problem aside from literally just like building housing that's essentially funded by taxpayer dollars and it's affordable and just solves that issue. I mean, you have to rely on the market solution, which is not guaranteed, but it's the idea that you have people move up from one housing type to the next in the community as they, are making more money. So they leave a more affordable house for a more valuable house in the area. But I personally would love to see statistics on that. It's something that I've heard come from on the, any of the pro zoning argument side. But I just, me personally, I have my own skeptical views on that, just because I personally don't really have much faith in those kinds of markets at all. Like most markets I don't have faith in. So whatever. And that just sort of gets you back to, you need to subsidize it. And this isn't we don't need to keep having that conversation. At any rate, I want to go back to that vote request, because ultimately the vote request happens. Now, what the planning board basically asserts in these minutes here is that they aren't the ones that that are mandated to do that, because because 202 is it's a state highway, so it's really a Department of Transportation problem, right? Like, why would the town planning board sweat something that's literally on the state to deal with or run the study, right? So in a sense, and it's also, there's nothing in the book saying that they have to do this. They would have to perform some sort of traffic study in order to proceed with this project, right? So there's no legal requirement. All right. So right off the bat, anything that if the citizens are asking for, say, well, we want a traffic study, we'd like to see a traffic study. Okay. Let's be clear. We want to see a traffic study is not the same thing as we want the planning board to vote on a traffic, take a vote about the traffic study, which is whether or not we should ask if we should do the traffic study at all. So at this point, what I would say is, look, if you want the traffic study, just go straight to the DOT, tell them to get in contact with the town, get information, have them do the study. I don't see what the problem is. But the planning board doesn't have to be involved in that until they get contacted by the DOD. They're the second step on that. So or DOT. Sorry, not DOD. We're not talking about defense here. Been a long day. But to then turn around and say that, well, the planning board seems to, we'll go back to it, planning board seems to have no oversight of these issues. Build way too many houses for such small space. I'd like to I'm going to see if I can go back and find sort of the actual details on that. But, look, that's your opinion, dude. Way too many houses on a small plot. Like, I'm sorry, that's an opinion. And I get that this is the opinion page in the paper, but the way that's stated is very categorical and states it like it's just that's just how it was, or that like that this is simply it, that these are too many houses. Well, you know what? That's up for debate, and actually, I would argue that you're completely wrong about that, sir, because to Ben Shapiro, sir, sir, so no, but seriously, dude, like this. That's not a fact, okay? That it's just way too many houses for such a small space. I mean, we're literally talking about we need better density. We need I'm sorry that literally every single thing that we build can't be exactly what we want, but if that was the case, then you should have run for that planning board seat. Okay? Don't give me anything other than that. Like, I don't know. Maybe that's too hot a take. But I don't know. I have a hard time with that one. It's we can, we can sit here and we can bitch and moan about planning boards letting developers do things, I don't want to hear it, man. If you're not going to talk about the actual problem, then don't come to the table with this stuff. Okay? Don't waste our time with it. Because all this does is serve to vilify a bunch of people who are really getting paid absolutely nothing to do a whole bunch of work to make sure that the town stays the way that we like it, okay? They're the planning board. The whole point of what they do is to follow the master plan, okay? And they're trying to work within it, and they're trying to figure out ways to deal with this because you've got a task force designed for housing to get more affordable housing in a town. And yet, this is what we got. So I'm done talking about this one, okay? I'm done talking about this for right now. But like, I will just sort of like cap it off with the planning board did vote at the end of that meeting about whether or not to do a traffic study. Everybody on the planning board agreed that they didn't need it. Judy Wilson Furstenberg said she would be for it because it seemed like there were a lot of people in the room that wanted it. So, we should do it because there's a lot of people that are angry and want it, which sometimes is okay. I get that there's value in that, but like, again, go back to what I said just a few minutes ago when I'm talking about the correct procedure, and you'll know that that's not, it doesn't even matter because, so you're asking, like, um, yeah, I don't know. It's like asking a balloon maker to make a, a balloon doll instead of a clown. But I don't know if that's a good analogy. I guess could be crap. I didn't think I don't have a better one off the top of my head right now. And if anybody has a better one, you can totally throw it in a comment below. Um, but you're going to the wrong people. So the planning board obviously votes the way they would, which is no, we're not going to do this. And then you get letters like planning board disregards concerns of people. So, yeah, that sucks, man. That sucks hard. Um, let's see here. I will just show this, it was just, for fun. Um, this was a piece of propaganda type nonsense that was shared out in, it was used by some protesters out in, I think it was in Concord, and I mean, probably would make sense that it was in Concord. Awesome shout out to Senator Jean Deach, who represents our area. She showed up on this. Holla holla. No, but seriously, this is ridiculous. Um, I it's like I don't know where to start with it, frankly. It's it's kudos for putting that much time into, like, that, like, work went into this. A lot of, like, this is like some serious graphic design effort right here. So props. Um and I mean, it's I'm not going to spend any real time talking about it right now. But it is, I mean, like, it's funny. I will have a link to the article here. Because it's, obviously there's this article below it, written by Ethan DeWitt, who did a great job. I did. Um, I I I I have read it. I would need to read it again to give you guys everything, just because it's been hard to keep everything in my head lately. But he did an awesome job on that one, and so I think it's worth reading through. Um, More realistic in actual, like, okay, cut through all the political nonsense. What's the core argument there? The right wingers who made that are saying, well, all gun control started under these. If you look at it, it all happened in these fascist, communist, um, socialist enterprises. This is where gun control starts. And my argument would be, what about Australia or the UK, or, like, look, those, like, red, communists, such, like, they are not the only people that have enacted gun control. It's not any of those things. So that's just, it's a ridiculous talking point, and I don't, that's why I'm not going to sink too much time into it, and I would just say go and read this article for a good chuckle, because it's like, and to me it's just funny. I enjoy seeing goofy, like, anti-left propaganda stuff, mainly because for me it doesn't trigger me at all. I just, like, yeah, I just think it's really funny. So, so I love looking at that stuff, and it's fine with me. I don't get offended by it, but yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of people that are really upset about it, and it is not great. You know, I obviously do not encourage anybody to go out there and make anything like that. Is you know, whether you agree with me or not, don't do it because it doesn't help. Like, please, if you're gonna try and make anything, I don't have a problem with it being funny. I don't have a problem with memes, but you know, if you know, just try and find a way to contribute something positive, I guess, or at least try and move the conversation forward, or at the very very least, don't make it worse. Okay, or at least have the conscience to make an effort to not make it worse. It's like it's really, we're talking minimal levels here, folks. Minimal levels of not needing to be a total ass. Um, but yeah. So I guess, you know, let's see here. It's 7:44. Um all right, I'm going to see if I can pull up this Pelosi thing really fast so that um gosh. Where is it?
I'm not a
Okay, yeah, here we go. All right. So I do have it. So alrighty. Here we go. So
big fan of Medicare for all. I mean,
here we go.
I'm not a big fan of Medicare for all. I mean, I welcome the debate. I think that we should have health care for all. I think that the Affordable Care Benefit is better than the Medicare benefit. But we have invited advocates for it to testify in Congress, in the Ways and Means Committee, in the Budget Committee, in the Rules Committee, being respectful of the point of view. But it is expensive. Who pays is very important. What are the benefits?
Okay. I'm not going to show any more of that cuz she's atrocious in this clip. It's just like, look, I mean, she's basically saying no, you shouldn't be able to have it at point of use. You should have to pay. Like, who's going to pay for it? We all still pay for it. We all still pay the same, and we just cut out all the needless costs. So that's what happens there. It's really not that complicated to explain. So I don't know why she's mischaracterizing it. And what's fantastic about that, like really, really, really awesome, is she said something like a little different in this clip right here.
For holding this press conference and for your leadership on the single payer proposal. I remain a staunch and ardent supporter of the McDermott-Conyers bill. I am very pleased with the president's presentation last night. I'm sure others this morning have told you that he made an excellent diagnosis of the problem, and now we have to get on with how we take care of providing health care to all Americans. My problem with the president's proposal, if there is a problem, is that one of the principles of universal access, one of the principles of the single-payer bill is universal access. The president has accepted some of the principles of the McDermott legislation, be it universal access, no precondition, portability, the list goes on and on. But for access to be universal, it must be affordable. And my concern is that at 150% of poverty, a family would have to start paying for its 20% share of the insurance, may not make it affordable to many of the families whose needs it hopes to address.
I mean, look, like, I don't need to do more of this. It's like, and they like clearly like. I'm not the first person to debunk this. If you check out any like actual left stuff, they do a lot of this work. And like honestly, like here's something I would say: if you're a more conservative leaning person, you're watching this, right? First off, wow, thank you for watching this and tolerating me, because you probably hate most of what I'm saying. If not, awesome. Let's chat someday. But in all seriousness, I would actually check out some of the the left media, as much as you might be hate watching it, because we like those on the like those of us on the more left of center side of things, like past it, we like to critique our own, and we make good arguments. So if you like eating popcorn, that's a good place to do it, and it's you can actually have a good argument for making fun of Nancy Pelosi and not a really, really terrible one. So yeah, that was just a little like closer there, just some fun stuff. Like I said, when I come back, I'll be doing things in a more pre-recorded format. They won't be live streams like this anymore, at least for the time being. Maybe I'll get one together occasionally, but they'll kind of be like spur of the moment treat things, and not really a constant thing that I can do, just because my life is a little too demanding for that sort of thing right now. And even like, as we speak, I didn't make it to the solar event this evening. So I'm actually going to have to catch up with a few people, about that. Hopefully I can get an interview to sort of go over that, or have somebody come in and we'll go over stuff and we'll talk about it there. 'Cause that would just be a good sort of like, yeah, I think that would be valuable to do. So, and in the future when I have these interviews, I think something I want to do is try and sit down with the computer on hand, so that we can pull up the articles that we're talking about. We can look at it. We can, in post, put it up on the screen. We'll be able to show things there. So, yeah, just generally speaking, improvements coming down the line. There's certainly a change in format, but I think it will be really good. I think it'll be really good for the channel, ultimately. So, again, thanks to anybody who's tuned into this. Thank you so much to our patrons. Anybody that has committed to sending us money every month to keep this going, I can't tell you how much that means, and how much it validates this work. I worry a lot that that small town media is just gonna sort of fall apart long term. I really am concerned about it. And when folks are willing to set aside $3-5 a month to just throw at a channel like this, where it's like, we're completely independent out here doing this. We talk to people on our own. We have to dig all this stuff up. We have to follow it through. I mean, I don't have anyone working for me. I don't get any help from the local paper. I don't have anybody feeding me stories. I don't have nothing. It's just, I just sit here and have to come up with this stuff. And obviously that I think that shows in terms of how across the board it is, how scattershot it is, but I also believe that it tends to show that this is a genuine effort. And I think, I would like to believe that our patrons believe that. And if you believe that, please consider becoming a supporter. It makes a huge difference. And just, get out there, share the videos, pass them around, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, subscribe to us here on YouTube. You've got the little right down there. You've got your subscribe button, and the bell thing will hit you for notifications. If you have a Gmail account, that will allow you to subscribe. You don't need to sign up for a whole YouTube thing if you don't want to go through that whole process. I completely understand. But they've made it easier now, so if you have just a basic Gmail account, you can use that. And yeah, and if you hit the little bell, you'll get little emails for whenever we're doing something like this. So, if you're out and you're about, or you're able, home doing jack squat, and you happen to be trying to watch this, great, let's do it. So, yeah. Cool. Thanks a bunch, folks, for checking out this sort of last spur of the moment live stream. We won't be doing too many of these, at least for the next little while, but we'll be, we will absolutely continue to stay on top of the content. That's not something that's going to be changing anytime soon. So, no worries there. It's, the future is full of brightness. I hope, anyways, at least for this channel. And yeah, I think we can get somewhere with it. So you folks take care, and we'll see you next time. All right.